it's really sort of the idea of paideia, that your students are now able to, they have inside of them and top of mind beautiful language, noble ideas, and they're able to reproduce it appropriately and meaningfully on their own, unprompted, without any teacher or adult there asking them to do it. It's become theirs. And that's one of the really beautiful things that happens after you've put these liturgies into place.
We're going to talk today about liturgical classroom. So I'd like to start asking you about liturgies, hymns, and catechisms. They are terms that are commonly associated with the church. What do you mean when you speak of classroom liturgies, and why are they important?
Right. So I pulled this idea from James K.A. Smith's book, You Are What You Love, where he talks about how, as human beings just living in this world, we pass through cultural liturgies all day long that we're unaware of, and that those liturgies are actually doing things to us rather than us just doing things out there. And I started to think through what he meant by that, and I understood that this would have an application to the classroom and to education. And he uses an example of like going to the mall and going shopping, and I thought of the example of going to a football game, because when you do go to a high school football game, you see all sorts of things unfold in a certain order, and people participate in the event in a certain way. And that's to bring order so that everybody knows what they're supposed to do when, but it also is passing on values. Like we're also, through the actions that we're doing together, reinforcing what this community values and who they believe they are. And so I started to think, well, then this definitely has an application to the classroom and to education, because we want our students to be able to navigate some of these difficult transitions in the class state order in a way that is orderly and in a way that is repetitive and predictable. But we also want those things to be passing on to them ideas and narratives that are true, that situate them in a Judeo-Christian framework, right? That give them this biblically saturated understanding of how the world works and who they are. And so to me, it made sense that we could put some of these practices in place in the classroom to not only help the students move through time and space, like get through their class day, but also so that we could be passing on those values and reminding them of the story that they are in.
And what are the main elements of a liturgy? And why is it important that the liturgies are repeated consistently?
Sure. So I like to put what I call cultural artifacts in the liturgies, things that pass on, again, this idea of who the student is and what story they are in. And we can put before them poems and hymns and songs and artwork and even like ideas and principles that you could put into a catechism somehow that are passing on that. I guess they're sort of like coming alongside the curriculum and giving the curriculum its life by creating this culture. So what they do is they help the students be able to see what the point is of what they're learning. They give the students these additional sort of touch points and ways of imagining what the curriculum might look like in their lives, how they could live and embody the curriculum. So we can teach them about certain people in history, and we can give them events and dates, and we can retell certain battles. But by putting a poem in front of them about that hero or about that battle, they suddenly are inside of it in a different way. They're using their imagination, and their imagination is being formed in such a way that they now understand what it means to be brave, and what it means to be courageous, and what it means to do your duty in a way that just studying the historical event in a textbook failed to do.
And could you give us an example of how those liturgies take place in classrooms?
Sure. So I like to put 2 or 3 things together, back to back to back, just like you. So I don't think it's wrong to necessarily look to the church and to see like, well, this is how it is structured there. or to look at a different event and say, well, this is how it is structured there, and to just take some cues from how it works, because it is working out there, and we can make it useful for our purposes and towards our end in classical Christian education. So you can kind of approach it from a few different ways. One of the ways that you can do it is you can think to yourself, if I need them to move through this transition in the classroom, I need them to put away the workbooks that we were doing and put their pencil at the top of their desk. I need them to push their chair in, and then I need them to line up for recess. Well, how long will that take? And what could you be doing or saying or singing while they need to do all of that stuff? So then you're managing the actual movement in the classroom, but you're doing it in such a way that it's reinforcing a certain story, right? So you could do it that way. You could sort of think through, like, what is the transition I need them to make, and how long do I need this liturgy to go in order to make that transition? Or you could just sort of look at your curriculum and you could say, well, this is the unit we're studying right now, so I would like to sing a hymn that's specific to that time period, or the favorite hymn of this important person in history. I would like to recite this poem that points to an idea that was important to that historical person. So you can sort of build a liturgy around whatever the curriculum is as well, so that the students understand the meta narrative, the bigger idea behind the curriculum. So an example might be when I was teaching U.S. history, I had the students sing the Concord hymn, which is it's a poem, but you can sing it to a tune that's very well known by American students. So we sang that poem, and then we recited the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, and then we reviewed all of our important history dates, and then I asked them a few questions before they were allowed to sit down. So that's just a small little liturgy. It's a set of repeated actions that's managing a transition, that's helping everybody to know what they're supposed to do in space and time right here and now. But it's also pointing to all of these bigger ideas within the curriculum and also within our telos of education. Who do we want you to be at the end of this? When you graduate, what kind of person do we want you to be? And then we hope that you continue to be that person your whole life long.
And what changes did you observe in your classroom after implementing this liturgy?
Right. So this is kind of exciting. So when you start doing these sorts of things, what you'll see is that you'll see these culture moments pop up, right? You'll see we did this together. We recited this poem together, or we learned the answer to this difficult question together. And then the students will reproduce it on their own at the right place and time, very appropriately. And so that's the benefit. It's really sort of the idea of paideia, that your students are now able to, they have inside of them and top of mind beautiful language, noble ideas, and they're able to reproduce it appropriately and meaningfully on their own, unprompted, without any teacher or adult there asking them to do it. It's become theirs. And that's one of the really beautiful things that happens after you've put these liturgies into place. So you can teach a very routine Orthodox prayer to your students at one point in your day, and then suddenly when they're spontaneously praying elsewhere, they will use a phrase or they will borrow an idea from that thing that they learned together on their own. And that's really the glory of it. And when that happens, you understand that you've passed on a culture. You've guarded a culture, and you've cast it up.